So in this particular tutorial, I wanted to show a really interesting thing, how we can tap into the SQL Server system processes, and we'll use sys.columns to get object-related data around our column structure, and we're actually going to return wide tables. So that's going to be tables that have over 20 columns in our case. Now, this is quite a common requirement, especially when you dive deeper into SQL, because you may be having performance issues or queries that are running slowly. So we want to get to the bottom of the data that's actually necessary, and we can start almost debugging from there. So I'll write a comment here. I'll say script to show wide tables that have over 20 columns. And we're going to use a variable, so we could modify this later on, but I'll just show you how it works. And we'll just say improve performance by potentially getting rid of redundant data. So first of all, we'll declare a variable. So we'll say declare, we'll just call this threshold or upper limit, and it's going to be an integer. And we will set our threshold to 20 because we don't want because we want tables that have over 20 columns. So we'll set that to 20, and then we'll set up CTE. We'll just call this CTE for simplicity. We'll say CTE as. And remember, you want to have that separator, that statement terminator, that semicolon before starting our CTE, so that it runs properly. And we will say select object underscore, get this, see if it likes the casing here, object ID, there we go. And we will say we want to also query from this object ID. So this is a system process that runs on column objects, and it can return data regarding those. So we'll say count of, and we'll say, we'll alias this, we'll say columns is equal to the count of all of those results there. And then now what we'll do is we will say from sys columns there. So it's a system process, and then we'll say group by, and I will explain some of this as we move further here. Group by object ID, and we want to use having instead of where, because we've got a group by, that's just common practice, and we've went over that before. Having count greater than what we specified in our threshold, our limit that we want to surpass. All right, and then we can select, and we will say s.name, and we will say and we will take n here. We'll add t dot name, and then table, and c dot columns. We'll say from CTE, alias that is C. Then we will inner join sys.tables, alias that is T, on C dot object underscore ID is equal to T dot object underscore ID, then inner join sys dot schemas, say s on t dot schema underscore ID equal to s dot schema underscore ID. All right, so let's first of all see what happens when we run this. So we'll execute, and there we go. We get the tables that within the AdventureWorks 2019 that have a column value over 20. We could always change this to say 5. And we have a lot of columns that run over 5, or we could say over 15 and execute, and we would have 3 options. And what we're doing here is we're looking to list all of our wide tables, because when we potentially have within our AdventureWorks, we have 70 tables, that can be very troublesome to go through and see where the potential tables that are kind of sucking up the energy are based. So we've got these system processes that Microsoft have as standard that we can run. And I've actually taken this. This is one of their standard scripts to get this, to access these system views and these object views to actually return those white columns. And we've got the power to modify, the variable, the size, what we deem as a wide column. Potentially if we had some queries that were taking a long time, maybe because the amount of data we're holding in certain tables and it's taking a long time to iterate through them. So we declare our variables, we got CTE, and in here we're just selecting the object ID from the Microsoft system processes from sys.columns, and we're taking account of the columns from the column object within this. We grouped by the object ID, and that object ID is the table, and then having a count greater than threshold. So basically we're saying everything over this, what we deem a wide column value. And then from here, we're just running some Microsoft standard code for these views. And then from the CTE, we are getting the name and the table. So if we were to run this again, and I can show you, you see we get the table name joined together here. So that's what that means. We're joining together the schema name and the table name. And then we're again just joining together relevant dependencies. And this is just a standard script. And what you can do is you can actually just copy this out, you can save it, and then you can hold it for when you are needing to query this again. This will work in the context of any database that we specify. So if you want to check this within any larger databases in the future with SQL Server, maybe even some production databases, it's still going to work because this is Microsoft's standard views, and they just give us access to them through sort of right of having SQL Server. So what I would do here, I would save it as, and we'll just say wide column check there, and we can save that in. And there we go. We have a nice script. Again, if we execute, we'll check for tables within the AdventureWorks 2019 database across all schemas where they have columns greater than 15. If you do want to go ahead and note this down, if you haven't already, feel free to stop here, copy down the script, and enjoy looking into. You can type into to Google either Microsoft System Stored Procedures, or you can look at these sys dot processes. So you can give those a quick search if you want to learn more. There's a lot of different options that we can run to help sort of the, let's say, monitoring or analysis behind the scenes within our database.